G'day everyone, and Armistice Day, Tuesday the 11th of November, and Club Grubbery time again, John. It's been a busy day so far, mate.
Busy day. It's going to be a busy night, but great company. Looking forward to this one.
Great company. George Christensen joining us again. George, thank you so much for being so willing to be on the program.
No worries, Hoodie. Good to be with you and Lada. And we're going to be discussing a lot of the bad stuff that's happening in Canberra, no doubt.
Oh, is there any good stuff coming out of Canberra? We can talk about that later. It shouldn't take long. But yeah, we're going to be talking about all things digital ID and other bills that are sneaking through in the dead of night. And of course, later on, John, in a couple of hours, we'll be talking to Jared Rennick as well, and we'll get another perspective on what's going on. But some great work being done by these guys, by George and Jared Rennick and a few others. We need to give them some airtime, that's for sure. Everyone wanting to know, George, about where the government of Australia is at with digital ID. It is causing a ruckus amongst a lot of people, no matter what side of the COVID fence they're on. There are a lot of people on both sides of that fence who are very, very disturbed by the possibilities of this. What can you tell us, mate?
Well, I can tell you that in 1 month, digital ID will almost practically be forced on many Australians. You will either have to go through some biometric scanning, or you will have to have some form of digital identification or other identification that you've got to show big tech in order to continue using things like Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and a host of other social media platforms. And that is going to expand as the e-safety commissioner has a conniption about something else that she's seen that she doesn't like on another platform, or at the minister's want. So what I'm talking about here is the Albanese government's Social Media Minimum Age Act, which actually comes into force on the 10th of December. So that is D-Day. And look, quite frankly, it is nothing more than a push for digital ID, or forcing digital ID on a whole host of people who otherwise would not have got it. It's just like what they're doing over in the UK, where they're linking it to getting a job. Here it's being linked to using the internet. It's always linked to something to try and make it better for you. And in this case, they're going on the whole thing of people's fear about children using the internet. Yes, look, I share that. I've got a 5-year-old daughter. I don't want her on there, on social media in particular, where she could be exposed to bloody perverts and pedophiles. And you don't want your kids sucked down the whole TikTok hole where they're looking at these sort of 10, 20-second clips and just going brain dumb, brain dead, after looking at that for 2 hours. So that, it resonates with a lot of people, with a lot of parents. But you know what? Anthony Albanese is not my daughter's parent. I am. And I get to control what she watches and what she doesn't watch. Thank you very much. But, that's just a ruse. It's a ruse to actually push people into digital ID. And can I say, before I get off my soapbox here for a moment, that Citizen Go, who I am the national director of in Australia, is about to launch a last-ditch effort, I guess, to try and do something about this bill and the push towards digital ID. I've been talking with Senator Alex Antic, and he has at this moment is in principle agreeing to present a bill that we have done a draft of. It'll probably be changed by him to make it better and perhaps more correct with some of the rules. But we've drafted a bill which is repealing the social media minimum age bill. And what we're also going to do is try and lobby the Liberal and National Coalition to actually do an about turn on their position in favour of the social media age verification regime, because it only got through the Parliament last year with their support, Hoodie, and that's they were all for it back in 2024. And yeah, look, I'm not going to rag too much on Peter Dutton. He's an old copper. He's seen the horrors of what, pedophiles and sex offenders do in relation to kids. And I think his heart was in the right place, unlike the government on that front. But at the end of the day, we got to understand the motives behind this. It isn't about protecting kids. It's more about controlling us. And so we're going to try and get him to do an about turn. We'll see what happens there. I'm slightly hopeful, actually, because the Shadow Minister for Communications, I believe that's Melissa McIntosh, has actually been making some statements in the press which are against the government's age verification regime, or at least questioning aspects of it. And that's a hell of a long way from, their former rah-rah support for it.
Well, it affects so many other elderly Australians as well, this age verification thing, because a lot of elderly Australians will look at YouTube from time to time. They want to pick up some hints on how to do a bit of this and a bit of that. They wouldn't have a clue about digital identification and scanning and all the other rubbish that goes along with it. The same people will be affected if they abolish cash, which is inevitable.
Yeah.
The media are talking about that as well, and you might have an opinion on that. But Johnny Larder, where do you see all this going, mate? What fears do you have?
Well, I just think it's a further encroachment of bureaucracy, like we saw during COVID. It's just another extension of government interfering where they shouldn't be. I mean, George rightly made the point that Anthony Albanese is not the parent of our children. And look, if you want to stop your children from accessing this stuff, there are programs available. You can certainly download apps. You can certainly upload software onto computers that mitigates that risk and controls it. And I know Jared Rennick's been talking about that for quite some time. So I mean, it just beggars belief that we're now going down this pathway. I mean, I just see this as a laneway to no good. I think that they're using this as an entry point to essentially expand the horizon on all this madness and overreach. And this is where they saw a soft target. And Peter Dutton was unfortunately somebody who got caught up in it. I mean, he may well have thought that it was a reasonable idea. He may well have thought that the polling suggested that the majority of parents would support this, but I think on reflection, it was bad policy.
Absolutely. And I mean, George, your comments about, who's parenting your daughter are relevant. And a lot of Australians need to wake up. We cannot expect or give an opportunity for the government to get involved in every aspect of our lives. For goodness sake, if you want your children to live in a free country, you've got to be their parent. You've got to educate them. You've got to make sure you take responsibility for their education, for their nourishment and their protection. And if you're going to be leaning on the government to do all that stuff because you're too lazy to do any research, then you're going to create a world for your kids that you're going to dread. You're going to hate it. You're going to face the autumn of your years in this tyrannical setup, and you're going to have to live with the guilt that you allowed it to happen to your children, and they're going to have to live with it. I mean, we have to be strong about these things. And this all fits into a global elite narrative that everybody prattles on about, the WEF, the New World Order, the WHO, the UN. All this stuff has all been playbooked for decades and decades. And we're seeing the way it's being implemented in the UK. Nobody has any say over this at all just yet. Everyone's hoping Nigel Farage will get in and put an end to all this madness, but they're going to go flat out to make sure that they get it through before he does, because he's looking pretty hopeful over there at the moment, George.
Oh, they well, I mean, they did the same with Trump, I guess, and so they continue the agenda on now, trying to do that without him or after him. But yeah, you're right. There's like they've got their skates on, trying to ensure that Nigel Farage, that things are locked in and will take effect before he becomes Prime Minister, and he will become Prime Minister of the UK. I've got friends over there who would be traditional Labor voters, and they're not so much signed on to the reform agenda, but they tell me without a doubt he's going to be Prime Minister, so there's nothing stopping this juggernaut. So mark that down. But look, just going back on the, I'm the parent of my kid, not the government, not Anthony Albanese. I understand. I completely understand why this has got widespread support, according to the polls, throughout the Australian community. The idea of banning kids from social media. But if you let the government become daddy for your children, they're not just going to become daddy for your children, they're going to become daddy for you. And you are going to find that out on the 11th of December, or perhaps the 10th of December, when the regime kicks into place and you go on Facebook, or you go on YouTube, or you go on X, or you go on Instagram or TikTok, or whatever social media platform takes your fancy, and you'll find that there is a major hoop to go through in order to access that site. And if you don't go through the hoop, you probably won't be able to post, and you probably will be restricted from looking at a whole heap of material that's on that website. Now, that's the future, where basically the government's treating all of us, not just kids, treating all of us like kids. And actually the internet becomes something that's less of a right to actually just use and more of something that the government can give and take away from us. Yeah. Now, what makes the internet actually different to any other aspect of life? And we saw that during COVID, right? I couldn't, I'm assuming all of us couldn't go to a bloody theatre or a library or a sporting event or a cafe or a restaurant, or most public venues. I mean, we had to be thankful, yes sir, thank you sir, that we could go to the bloody supermarket, all because the government said that we pose a risk because we weren't vaccinated. And now that's all turned out to be bullshit. And this age verification has also already turned out to be bullshit. I mean, that they have shown in studies repeatedly that this has the opposite impact when this is brought in, because kids, unlike someone of my era and above, are very familiar. They're called digital natives. They were born into the whole internet being just ubiquitous, and they know all the little tricks and the ways to get around this. And sadly, as Senator Matt Canavan said just recently, this is actually going to lead kids to the darker corners of the internet rather than pushing them off.
George, I mean, the signals are there. I mean, do you really think this is about the kids, or this is about capturing the market? I mean, when you look at it, when we went through COVID, I mean, they used the internet to essentially lock us out, to stop the spread of information, correct information. I mean, platforms like yours and ours were shut down for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. Some instances, they were even closed off on Facebook. People had their entire internet shut down. The government, I mean, we saw the ABC a few weeks ago running a Four Corners program on pedophiles. So the signals are there, aren't they? I mean, they're hyping all this up about, they're doing it for, the good of the kids. But realistically, I think this is a shutdown of alternate people's voices. They see the internet as a real risk to the sovereignty of what they're doing.
Well, I think that everything's melded into one, John. I think that this is a clear push for digital ID, but what you're talking about is whether it's a clear push to shut down alternative media, which really has upset the media elite and the political class at the same time. How many eyeballs are now on podcasts like Tucker Carlson's or Candace Owens or numerous different commentators? Joe Rogan has the one of the top podcasts in the world, according to Spotify, and they actually outnumber the mainstream media by multitudes, factors of multitudes. I can tell you that on any given day, and I could bring it up and even show you the data, I'm getting, a weekly basis over 50,000 people reading my Nation First Substack. Once a month, there'll be something in excess of 80 or 100,000. I don't think many of the major city newspapers could claim to have such readership, to be quite honest. Although online they probably do. But anyway, I should be comparing apples with apples. But the point is that it's getting more eyeballs than much of the mainstream media, and that's just little old me. Think of the outfits that are way bigger. So it really has caused an upset to them. And I think it's all tied in, right? The misinformation push goes hand in hand with this. And what the government has tasked the e-safety commissioner with doing, and that office now needs to be abolished, by the way, but what the government has tasked the e-safety commissioner with doing is basically implementing the bill that they couldn't get through Parliament, which was the Combating Misinformation and Disinformation Bill. So they're using other means, principally what they call the digital duty of care principles, I guess, where all of these social media platforms now need to consider certain things before they allow you to post things up online or allow those things to stay up online. So it captures misinformation that way, or so-called misinformation, should I say, because what one person claims to be misinformation is simply a valid opinion from another person. But look, it's global. I can just point out that, as I did before, the UK is pushing digital ID. They're also well down the track of the whole misinformation approach. You post something that they don't like over in the UK, you're going to knock on the door from the police. That's how bad it is. And I personally know people who have had that knock on the door. A mother I know, Caroline, she got the knock on the door a few years ago in the middle of cooking a chicken dinner for a family, where the police said that they were there to discuss something that was posted on X, and they needed to come into the house, and they confiscated all devices that family had, and the mother was sort of frog marched out and arrested in front of her children as she was preparing chicken dinner for them that night. So that's where it leads to, mate.
Look, I want to pose to both you gentlemen, because we're all in the same boat. We've had times, George, when some of our programs have had greater viewership than the ABC on that particular time. And,
Not hard.
we were told,
Not hard.
yeah. And we've also been told by a former Channel 7 executive at the Nigel Farage event that they were concerned about the viewership that programs like ours were getting because we were doing better than they were.
Yeah, good.
So we know that for a fact. But here's the dilemma. Now, I don't look at the comments on social media much relating to our programs. I try not to for obvious reasons. And secondly, we just really don't have the time. We're flat out. But one comment came through from one of our followers, and it was a relevant question. Are you guys going to stand on your morals when this comes through and therefore not do the age verification and then lose all your following and your program, or are you going to cave into it? Now, there's a dilemma, and that's a dilemma that all of us need to face, and all of us need to consider whether we're producing stuff or watching it. Now, the thing is this, that if we do stand up and say, no, we're not complying, and we're all shut down, then that plays right into the government's hands as well. So I want to know from both of you what you think people in our position should do, because I haven't even thought that far ahead yet, to be honest with you. And the Australian in me who doesn't want to comply wants to tell them all to stick it. And if there's no social media for me, then I'll put the tinny on the back of the ute and go fishing. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people who rely on all of us to keep them informed. Where do we go?
Can I jump in quickly and just say, I don't believe that will be a decision that we will have to make, at least in the first instance.
Mm-hmm.
So we will continue operating, obviously, on platforms like Facebook and YouTube. But it's those platforms that will be the ones restricted, not the people using it. Of course, we're going to have to decide whether or not individually we go through some digital ID scheme. And my strong advice is don't. There will be probably a range of different options that you get to go on social media. So one of them will be simply digital ID. That's the easiest. You can do it. You do it now. You'll get in, and you'll get in seconds. And so most people will just go, okay, I'll do that. The normies out there will say, bugger spending half an hour filling in a form. I'll just do that. But there will be some form that other people can use that'll take you not even probably it'll take more than half an hour. It'll take probably weeks. So there could be a likelihood of some people not being able to use social media while ID and stuff is manually vetted. And that's obviously a bridge too far for most Aussies that just want to get on like that. So there'll be another option. I'm sure in the beginning there will be another option other than digital ID, but we won't be the ones imposing that on our viewers. Sadly, it will be, though, the platforms that we use, and there's just no escaping that. You could take that principled stance of saying, oh, well, I'm not going to be on any platform that requires this, but at the end of the day, it's the government that's requiring the platforms to have it on there. And they're going to be interested to see what X does, because X could very well turn around and give the finger, flip the bird to the Albanese government and say, no, take us to court. Or they could get behind the court case that is going to be already ongoing. So that'll be interesting.
Tell us about that court case.
Well, the Digital Freedom Project, which is being headed by New South Wales member of the Upper House, John Ruddock, is going to be launching a High Court challenge against the government's social media age verification scheme on the basis that it breaches human rights. It breaches also, I think there's other provisions that they're bringing in. It breaches privacy as well, but it does breach human rights obligations where we do not allow for age discrimination. So I love to see when the left get hoisted by their own petard on these things, kids' rights, children's rights, don't smack your kids. But at the same time, you can stop them from using the internet if you're the government. So they're going to get hoisted by their own petard, I hope, on this. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I think that is something that needs to be done. It needs to be supported. I think the Digital Freedom Project, as they call it, is actually calling now for donations on that front. Now, I've just scared myself that I'm calling it the wrong name, so I'm just going to double check that it is called the Digital Freedom Project, but I believe that's the case. I was actually, yeah, it is, and you can go to digitalfreedomproject.org.au. I was actually down there in Parliament with one of their workers just recently, and we were talking with various senators about this, and they were filming, so they're going to record a bit of a documentary, but you can go onto their page and it shows you how you can donate and take action yourself. But in concert with that, there needs to be a political push, and that's why I go back to what we're doing at Citizen Go. If people aren't members of Citizen Go yet, citizengo.org, and you are going to see a petition that will be live on that website probably by Thursday, and it's going to be targeting the entire leadership of the Liberal and National Coalition to get them to change their tune on this. If we can do that, we can get that social media age verification repeal bill up in the Senate. We can get it debated, we could get it voted on, we could force a vote, and we could have almost the entirety of the crossbench, I believe, the Greens included, and the Liberal National parties voting for a repeal. Now, that wouldn't get it through the Parliament, but it would have a bill past the Senate. And that is an embarrassing blow for the government. And what it does is it also raises the spidey senses of every bureaucrat that's involved in this, knowing that, oh, wow, half of the parliament has actually just rejected what we're implementing here. Half of the parliament wants it gone. Half of politics wants it gone. Do we go so hard on this now because it could only be around for a few years? That's the kind of message it sends. And I think we need to send it. It could also lead to the government saying, oh, well, I mean, you know, you live in hope for this kind of thing. Oh, well, this is no longer bipartisan and we're going to ditch it, you know, because maybe it just becomes all too hard for them with court cases, with losing the support of the Senate, of the opposition. It might become all too hard for them. Can I tell you another thing that we were talking about before the show started, and that was some murmurs that One Nation supported this social media age verification. I've sent a link to you in the show chat there, Hoodie. If you are able to put it up on screen, it's proof, and I wanted to get the definitive proof that this is incorrect. If you have a look at that, it's a chart that's pretty good that the Parliament does this. They have bills and they show you the final vote, and they've got a table format, votes by party, and then you've got whole votes by individuals. So there's a lot of information that's out there on who voted for what and which party voted for what. But if you have a look at the top there, just to see that we're on the right bill, it's the social media Online Safety Amendment, Social Media Minimum Age Bill 2024. This is in the Senate, red chamber, and then we go votes by party. If you can see down there, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, and this is where the issue's been. People have said that One Nation voted for it. Well, and you've got to watch because some of the colours are the same. The Country Liberal Party colour is also like a shade of orange. But if you go down there to that smaller column, which are the no's, you will see that orange column there is One Nation. And so you can even, to ensure that that's correct, individual votes, go down there and you can click that no tab, the no's at the top, see the tab there, and you'll find out who voted against it. And
Hanson Young voted against it.
Yeah, all of the Greens voted against it.
Yeah, good.
All of the Greens. So you got Alex Antic, he also voted against it, and Malcolm Roberts voted against it. And he was probably the only One Nation representative there at the time. Not every senator, turns up, and some senators are paired. So we got to remember that was a stage where it was only Pauline and Malcolm that were the One Nation people in there. So One Nation voted against it. 100%.
Well, that should silence the critics then, because there's been quite a bit of online argy-bargy about that. So thanks for verifying that, George.
No worries.
Okay, I'll stop sharing that screen. So I'm getting better at this, Johnny.
You're going all right, Hoodie.
Going all right, mate. All right, John, you'd have some questions, mate.
Yeah, well, I think what George was saying there is 100% right. I think that they'll be very tardy on the arrangements to start with. But what do you think, George? Do you think that the fact that the opposition is so weak at the moment, and they can't hang their head on anything, they're dreadful. Do you think that this could be an opportunity for them to actually lock into something? And this could be the thing that gives them the opportunity to say, well, we've got to actually stand for something. And this is something that, we know has really got the opportunity with the Greens supporting this to actually have a swipe at the Labor Party.
Yeah, look, I think so. I think that right now they need to start making some definitive and clear signals to the Australian electorate about where they're travelling. And on net zero, hopefully they will come to that conclusion. Although, as usual, I think it'll be with 101 caveats that basically says we're still going to do it. We're just not going to call it net zero. And if that's the end result, it won't even be worth the debate and the hassle that they've gone through. But anyway, you can always live in hope. But they need to start really talking back to their base, listening to and responding to their base. Because if you don't have your base with you, you've lost everything. How can you expect anyone else to support you if the people who have supported you through thick and thin are walking away?
Yeah.
And that's what's happening right now. The fact that we see, the Liberal Party vote down to 24%, One Nation up to 15%. Actually, have I got those numbers wrong? I think that no, I haven't, because it was pointed out to me, and this is interesting. It just takes 5% now to change the dynamics of Australian political landscape if those numbers are correct, and I believe they are probably correct. What they mean by that is if 5% of people now drop their support for the coalition and start supporting One Nation, then the coalition's votes down to 19% and One Nation's is up to 20%. And then we have a UK situation here in Australia where everyone's wondering what's going to happen next, because it ain't going to be just the two-party show anymore. And perhaps that's going to be inevitable. Time will tell.
Pauline seems to have nailed the colours to the mast. She's been at Mar-a-Lago. She's been hobnobbing with Trump and Nigel Farage as well. And that's getting a lot of press. So she does seem to have nailed her colours to the mast. Age is against her, though, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, look, and I think that sadly some people are still stuck in the personality cult dynamics. I don't think it's about personality cults. I think it's about the party. Well, no, let me rephrase that. It's about the policies. It's about the policies and about the principles and about where they stand. And so you don't want a vehicle to just be a cult of personality that's going to elect someone to office. And people think that's what's happened over in the US or the UK, but I can tell you that's not the case. I mean, that MAGA movement, while Trump created the name, it was already there in the Republican Party. It's been there for a long time. You might remember the name Pat Buchanan, Hoodie. Remember that guy?
I do. Yeah, I do.
So Pat Buchanan ran against, challenged George Bush Sr. for the presidency when Bush Sr. lost to Bill Clinton. And Buchanan, they thought, holy moly, he might win, because he started winning these sort of states that they thought that he had not a chance of winning in. But he was running completely on a Make America First, Make America Great Again, rather, an America First platform. I mean, and then you had people like Ross Perot, who wasn't in the Republican Party, he was in the Reform Party, but it was certainly people who were there on the right of the Republicans that wanted to see that sort of strategy. So this has been around a long time, and Trump has just harnessed the movement. And Farage in the UK, my understanding is Reform was already leading in a lot of seats before Farage came on board. It was actually the polls that showed the rise of Reform and the ability that they could actually win a number of seats, including one that was close to Farage's heart, that got Farage on board. So this is not the Nigel Farage show. Certainly his abilities, which are, great. He's got great abilities, great political instincts, and great charisma and all the rest of it. He has helped them surge, and you need that person at the helm. But we don't need to fall in the trap of a cult personality. What we need is principles, policies in the right party, so that whatever leader comes to the fore, as long as they hold true to those principles and policies, that they will do good for the Australian nation and the Australian people. And quite frankly, you live in the forever hope when you were once part of an outfit. I hope that the Liberal and National parties get back to that. I don't see any real signs of that actually happening right now. But apart from with Andrew Hastie, but I think that the effort is on to make sure that he doesn't become leader. You've seen people that have just been out there trying to undermine him. So yeah, that's my assessment.
George, I was speaking to a businessman yesterday that came back from China. And it's interesting we're talking about digital ID because I mean automatically you think of communist China and the
Mm.
what's going on there. You think, oh, it's out of control. But he was telling me a story of quite the opposite. I mean, it almost sounds to me like we're more communist than China.
Wow.
That we're,
Maybe
they're driving around and they're speeding, and yes, there's cameras, but they're not being fined. That there is uh, a lot of things going on there that you would think would not be acceptable, but are tolerated, and it's not the regime that is sort of people here are thinking it is. What's your view on what's going on over there?
Look, uh, I think that there's something that happens in those countries at a superficial level, which seems like, gee, there's more freedom here than what you think, and particularly as foreigners, because the government's not interested in us too much if we're just over there to make money or to go holidaying, you know. But in terms of private citizenry, their own citizens, or even outsiders that come there to talk politics and do political actions that the government would disagree with, and it could even be remote, that they will get cracked down upon. So yes, on the one hand, you know, talking on your mobile, I've seen things overseas where people just go through red lights, police are nearby, they'll just sort of shake their finger and won't do anything. People riding everywhere throughout certain countries without helmets on, when it's the law you have to ride around with a helmet on when you're wearing a motorbike, and all that sort of stuff. And for the average Aussie tourist, it's easy to say, wow, this is freedom. Wow. Because we are quite, to be quite honest, I mean, we pretend that we're a bunch of carefree, relaxed sort of larrikins. But really, in comparison to the rest of the world, Australians and Australia is just so uptight and anal. It's not funny. And we saw that during COVID. That's what we saw, you know, during COVID. That writ large, where, yeah, why aren't you wearing your mask? You know, where's your vaccination certificate? Why are you in here without a mask? You know, that sort of anal stuff. Ride down the road without a helmet on, wearing on just a bicycle, and see how long it takes before someone shouts at you, "Where's your helmet?"
Mm.
You know, people can't mind their own business in Australia, quite frankly.
no, that's true.
And anyway, the point is that, look, I agree with him on the superficial level, but on the deep level, no. I've got a lot of concerns about China. I mean, you look at what they do to Christians in particular, and I mean, while Christianity is rapidly rising there and is expected within, you know, not too long in Chinese terms, though that can be a long time, to actually become the dominant religion over there, the Chinese Communist Party is doing whatever they can to either shut it down where it won't conform, or to get it to conform. The Catholic Church over there, for instance, has been, you know, they had an underground church there where some of the priests and bishops and laity have been locked up, put in jails, key thrown away. But at the same time, the Chinese government sets up their own version of the Catholic Church, and you know, it's you have to belong to it if you want to be a Catholic these days. And so they make sure that they get a communist supporting bishops, communist supporting priests, and they do this also with some of the Protestant sects as well. It's not just a Catholic thing. So they're wanting to control every aspect of life, including worship. But look, that's a China problem. It's not an us problem, unless China decides that it wants to seize long forgotten territory, which I do fear that some Chinese actually do view Australia as old territory that should be rightfully theirs. And if we keep on weakening ourselves with wokery and all this stupidity of digital ID and all the rest of it, there probably will come a time where China goes, right, it's ready for the taking.
Well, they own it financially anyway, and they've got Albanese in
Yeah.
the Labor Party who are running it de facto for them. I mean, Daniel Andrews, no doubt he's playing a role in the sidelines. But I want to talk to you about the Liberal Party, George, because we know we're stuck with this two-party preferred system, and the way the Liberals have performed, it's doubtful that they'll ever rise to government again in the next maybe 2 or 3 elections. They've got a lot of ground to cover. But
yeah, look, they're done. Put under Susan Lay's leadership, they're done. Put a fork in it. Yeah, honestly.
But we're looking at who are likely candidates that can bring the Liberal Party out. Now, Andrew Hastie is, of course, obviously ditched the poison chalice by going for the leadership early. He wants to come in later when they've got a better chance. But what about people like Alex Antic? Where do you see him going? Because he is dyed-in-the-wool Liberal. There's no shifting Alex from the Liberal Party. And he's played some pretty good strategies in South Australia. He is a very astute politician. Naturally, he's got to get out of the Senate if he wants to play a major role. But how do you see it all playing out for him?
Yeah, that's the difficulty, is being in the Senate. Look, Alex, I consider a good mate, actually. But his chances in the current state of affairs in the Liberal Party of becoming leader are in the single digits in terms of percent. That's the reality, is that, and Hastie's are much higher because he's in the House of Reps. They're much higher because he's sort of a decorated war hero. They're much higher because he's held shadow ministries. But still, I would probably put it at under 50%, because there are that many moderates in the Liberal Party, or so-called moderates. They're not moderates; they're leftists. They're leftists that are masquerading as liberals, they're actually liberal in the American sense of the word, and that's what they would say now. That we are true liberals, liberal in the modern liberal sense, and they call themselves modern liberals. But that's not the Australian understanding of liberalism. Australian understanding of liberalism is heavily tied up with libertarianism and conservatism. So, look, I think that it's going to be very difficult. And there's even the possibility that the Liberal Party could split. And perhaps that's what should happen, that the so-called moderates go their way, and the conservatives and libertarians go the other way, and we reset everything from there on in.
Would that open the door up, do you think, for the National Party to once again, become a force? I mean, if they were to pair up with the Conservatives?
I can give you the inside scoop there, mate. I could say the same things about the National Party that I could for the Liberal Party. It's funny that a lot of people say, "Oh, well, these Liberals could join the Nationals, and then they'd be a real conservative force." And I'm like, well, apart from the fact you have to kick out the modern Liberals that are actually in the Nationals as well, because there are. I could name them. I'm not going to, but I could sit there and name drop half of them. I mean, the National Party is made up of 3 distinct groups, I would say. There's the old school, and they're the ones who are sort of country party at heart, and I was probably part of that faction. Barnaby Joyce is certainly part of that faction. There's Matt Canavan, certainly part of that faction. There's the modern Liberal element, which really wouldn't be out of place in the Liberal Party and in the left wing of the Liberal Party. And they are there. There's at least, I can think off the top of my head, at least 4 that I put in that category. There's probably more than that. And then there's the plotters, the ones that are good blokes and good Sheilas that have got elected to Parliament, that just plod along, do the job in their local electorates, never set the world on fire, and they will go with whichever way the wind is blowing. And sadly, I mean, when I left the National Party, and I am going to rag on it. I don't want to, but I am going to just give my honest assessment. It was a party that had dissolved into being about three things, and it was the three Ps. It was pork barreling for their own electorates. It was portfolios, and I'm going to forget the other P now. Yeah, I'll come back to you if I remember the other P, but pork barreling and portfolios made up about 80% of it.
Pensions?
Well, they abolished that, sadly, or I'd be on one right now. But anyway.
Yeah, you've got this. They're far removed from the Doug Anthony days, aren't they? Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Parochialism, that was the other P. I mean, the National Party, I mean, there's an element there that actually wouldn't be too different to the Teals. When I say parochialism, I mean, that's the one good aspect you could say is that they're hyper invested in their local electorates, hyper invested, to the point where they almost don't care about anything else.
Mm.
And that's good if you live in that electorate. It's also bad because they're not cared about the bigger picture, and those things also affect their local electorates.
Mm. Mm.
I'm in Barnaby Joyce's electorate of New England, and where do you see him going?
Well, if I put my Nostradamus cap on, I would say that in the great year of our Lord 2028, when's the next federal election? Is it 2028?
Oh, it can't happen soon enough.
Yeah. Look, I think it will be 2028. Well, it could be 2027. One of the two. That Barnaby Joyce will run for the number one Senate spot for One Nation in New South Wales. He will return to the Senate in the new Parliament, and Barnaby Joyce will probably eventually become the leader of One Nation in Australia. That's what I see. That's my crystal ball. Could be completely wrong. I should have worded that like Nostradamus did in a way that, could be right, whichever
Two bob each way
happens. But anyway, but I'm not like that.
Two bob each way, Christensen. That's it. There you go. You've set the tone. Well, mate, it's we live in interesting times, and you've certainly answered a lot of interesting questions, and we've had a great chat about all of this. You got any final question, John?
Well, I suppose the only thing that I'd finally ask, George, is how do you think Barnaby will go mending some of those relationships that have soiled under the current regime?
Yeah. Look, he's and this is the bizarre thing about rising to positions of grandeur is that you have these principles, and I know Barnaby, I know him very well, and I've got to tell you that there's, I was going to say a tally-ho of difference between his views and my views. Might be about 5 tally-hos. He's got some differing views on some topics, but on 80 to 90% of the stuff that I believe, he believe exactly the same thing. In fact, some of his stances are probably more personal stances are more hard baked than me, but they get to these positions and they think, oh, I can't say what I really think. Even when you get to second from the top, and so you then have to express stuff and do stuff that's contrary to your own personal beliefs. Like, for instance, when the National Party voted to support net zero and he didn't. And then he had to walk out there as leader of the party and deputy prime minister and support net zero.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I probably would have pulled the pin. I probably would have said, see you later. You want to support that. But I guess that in his mind, it was better to remain in the job and make a good thing out of a bad situation. But unfortunately, that there'll have to be somewhat of an apology tour. Yeah. But don't think for a second that the stuff that Scott Morrison pushed was supported by Barnaby Joyce. Don't think for a second that the stuff that happened under Malcolm Turnbull was supported by Barnaby Joyce. I can tell you behind the scenes that he was such a thorn in their side. It is why Malcolm did everything to remove him from office. And why Scott Morrison actually fought so hard to ensure that Barnaby Joyce was not elected leader of the National Party.
That speaks volumes for the man, doesn't it?
Indeed. But you sort of need to be in the know and in the Canberra bubble, so to speak, to know these things, unfortunately. Woody, we might be out of time. Yeah, go on. Yep.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, we're talking about digital ID and all the rest of it. There's a 3-minute clip, and even if we can't run it, perhaps people can go and have a look at it.
Share it with me. I'll put it up.
Well, I have shared it there, and it comes from the United Australia Party of all outfits, and it was the best political ad that I ever saw created, because it was just so true, and the future that it painted for this nation was one that scared the buggery out of me. And so if you're able to play that, it just shows you where this is all headed. All this digital ID stuff, misinformation, age verification. This is where the government and the bureaucracy, as Trump would say, the deep state, has us all headed. And they pieced it all together in this 3-minute ad. It was unbelievable.
Let's do it. Here we go. John's going to be really impressed with me here. Here we go. People can see what I've been watching, the flathead videos. There you go.
William Powerfish.
In Beijing, they're using the technology to prevent people stealing rolls of loo paper from public toilets.
We have created a new implant, which is not a chip, it's a full device where you can add different functions.
Pinch of the skin, and in a matter of seconds, the chip is inserted.
Student Hannah Herving is also freshly chipped. An app using face scanning technology to confirm someone's identity and geo-mapping to check exactly where they are.
Remember that? That was from COVID.
This New York Times investigation woke us all up. The realization privacy may be a thing of the past.
Now facial recognition is in Australian schools.
But you may not know it, but facial recognition technology is quietly being rolled out and becoming the norm. Well, the government wants to set up a database that would match images of everyone captured on CCTV with their driver's license and passport photos. They've dubbed the system the capability.
The chip that it is in the tablet.
Did you know about this?
Once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, the compliance.
The app scans your face to check that you're a real person and the right person. Face verification happens then and there and is only needed at the time you set up your MyGov ID. The image captured during this process is checked against existing government records.
Already the authorities are using facial recognition to name and shame citizens, even for minor offences like jaywalking. As the technology develops, so too does the capacity for it to be abused. Across China, police officers are now trialling sunglasses and body cameras loaded with facial and gesture recognition technology.
If our government is allowed to continue with its plan of mass biometric surveillance, our legislation even allows them to share our data with third-party companies that could be from overseas. They could sell our data back to us, sell our own medical records to us. Some people are genuinely concerned that they're being commodified, objectified and dehumanized. Our lives would never be the same. Our children would never know the freedoms we grew up with. For any of us that thought this would never happen in our country, it has already begun. Help United Australia Party to save Australia from the overreach of power and unwarranted control and suppression that both sides of government have shown us in the last few years. Help set Australia free. Freedom forever.
It paints a scary picture, doesn't it?
drama for the United Australia Party.
Well, it's a shame. It's a shame they couldn't just revamp that, George, and Clive. Maybe put some cash towards it and get it put on the TVs.
Yeah, well, I think that consolidating all of this, because it all is a strategy. Everything's linked, and not just linked within Australia, but as Hoodie said earlier, this is linked globally. There is and Citizen Go's tackling this month as well. There is a international push for a globalized digital ID network, and this is why it's happening in so many countries right now. I believe, and you can go and have a look at the data points. They're out there. You can go and have a look at some of the statements that have been made, that they want to internationalize this. So it won't just be the Australia digital ID. It'll be a global digital ID. It'll be linked with our passports. It'll be linked with how we travel, where we travel. It'll be linked with vaccination statuses and all the rest of it. So that's coming.
Wow.
Unless we get angry.
People bag Clive Palmer, and sometimes he's given them good reason to. But I remember once, I think pre the last election, I was over in Perth at a gathering over there, and there was a big screen, and Clive Palmer appeared via Zoom link on the big screen. And I saw a tear in his eye when he said, I've got enough money to buy my kids whatever they want, but I can't buy their freedom. And that says it all. That says it all. I mean, it doesn't matter how rich you are. This is going to affect everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's been a very illuminating hour with you, George, as it always is. We really appreciate you coming on, and you're still involved in local government?
No, mate. I actually stepped down from my role. I just found it all too much, and there was also some family issues at the time that I needed to deal with. So I found it all too much, juggling so many different things. And along with that, the fact is that we could do another hour on local government and how broken that is in Australia, and I'm sure that John can tell you a few things too.
Let's do that.
The bureaucrats rule the roost, mate, and it is terrible. It is terrible.
Yeah.
So there wasn't too much I was achieving in that space. So I thought I will exit stage left, and I did.
Well, let's do that hour when next we meet, because obviously local government's grassroots, and it'd be good to have you on with Adrian McRae, because there's a story that both of you could tell that would be very enlightening. In fact, that's a panel I'd really like to do sooner rather than later.
We can do that for sure.
That'd be awesome, mate. So I think a prayer. What do you reckon, John?
Sounds good.
Dear Lord Father in heaven, we thank you for the integrity of our guest. We thank you for his courage and his ability to state it like it is, Father God. And we pray for the initiatives that he's involved in, that you would bless them to bring freedom of choice to the people who live in this country. We need all the help we can get, Lord, to stamp out tyranny. And we thank you for being in control, even though it looks like nobody is. We know, those who believe in you, that you are. So we thank you for that in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Johnny Lardy, you've often been heard to say,
you just couldn't make this stuff up.
You couldn't make this stuff up. God bless you, George. Thank you so much for being part of Club Grubbery. You've been on a few times now, and we'll definitely tee that one up with Adrian McRae. And all you Aussies out there, don't forget what you did yesterday got you to today. Stay out of the trees, hold the line, and keep in the fight. God bless you all, and bye for now.